So how have you enjoyed BlogPaws so far? Awesome? And what was the best thing about it so far? Networking? Vacation, okay. What else?
I won the doctorate.
Hey, prizes?
Yeah.
Very good.
For me, it's been dealing with a blind kid.
Oh. Lots of positive comments and feedback. What else? What else have you liked? Education? Anything else?
Seeing people in real life.
Yes. I have been friends with Laura since probably 2005, 6. And this is the first time that we've met face to face. So developing relationships online and taking them offline is a huge benefit for any social network, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, anything. So there are several people that I've been so excited to touch base with again that are actually in this room. So Susan and Sybil and Laura and I don't know if Celeste is here and Yvonne. So the relationships that I've made over the years really are part of what you all just said that BlogPaws is about for you. It's about education, it's about networking, it's about fun, it's about winning, whether the prize is a tangible prize or something that is online. So with that said, that's my dog, Max. Oh, can you say that a little louder because he's not here? Oh, Max, I'm a business blogger. My blog is Diva Marketing Blog. I don't blog about pets. However, Max finds his way into my blog every so often, and I use him to illustrate points about marketing and about social media. I also oftentimes interview authors. And that's why Max is reading that book. Max also read Sybil's book. He's a very smart puppy. And the first time I realized that my business blog was making sense to people is when I went to blog her back in 2005. And somebody came up to me and they said, "How's Max?" And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Who is Max? And she said, "Don't you have a dog named Max?" I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Well, I read about Max all the time on your blog." So she didn't ask about me. She asked about Max. So Max is how I humanize. This is my life in social media. And it looks a little bit messy, and it is a little bit messy. It's very hard to put social media into boxes, but that's okay. So up here you see me doing this stuff today. I've been quoted in a bunch of books. That's nice. There's my blog, which Susan, I believe, when she did her class, mentioned that there has to be an anchor, there has to be a central point, and usually it's your blog. Before we delve into Twitter, let me make this perfectly clear. Any social network that you do not own, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, the next new shiny toy, take with a grain of salt, because your customers, your viewers, your followers, your likes, I hate likes too, Susan, your fans can be here today, gone tomorrow, based upon what that social network does. How many times has Twitter changed? How many times has Facebook changed? Probably 39 seconds ago. And people love it or they hate it and they leave. And you never know where they are again. You can't capture them. There's Max. Max has a little video. He's not nearly as a rock star-ish as some of your people, but I use it to sandbox to test. So right here is what the heart of social media is for me. It's about building relationships. And those relationships really take off, and they form the foundation of my business, and they form the foundation of how I learned and how I continue to learn about social media. And right here, I don't know if you can see it, but here's Yvonne, and here's Susan. So relationships keep growing. Our game plan today, I want to give you a model to take home with. So these are the 4 phases of what we'll cover. We'll cover planning, engagement, measure, and tell. Because in social media, you can build the best Facebook page, the best Twitter account, but unless you tell them, they will not come. So we'll talk a little bit about that. This model is specifically today integrated into Twitter examples, but you can take the concept and overlay it on anything. You can take and overlay it on Pinterest, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can take the concept and overlay it on traditional marketing. So, with that said, this is not a sleeping, I hope, session. It's going to be a working session. So you have in front of you something that looks like this. And what I'm hoping is that by the end of our time together, you'll at least have something that you can take home with you as a base skeleton. So I've turned what our game plan was into our call for action. And this is what you have in front of you. So this was laid out specifically because, from my point of view, social media is all about telling the story. And so all of these parts here that we're looking at seemed a little bit disjointed. So there's planning and engaging and metrics and tell and so forth. But if you look at it in the line of a story, you'll begin to see how they integrate and build on each other. So knowing your customer, you'll understand how to create content. Understanding your customer and your content, you'll know what to measure and what to track. And then understanding all of that creates an engagement. Then how do you create awareness? So what you're going to be doing at the end of the session is you'll have your own story, your own model to take home with you. So, with that said, Mr. Tech Man, would you try? Adorable short kitty chasing her tail. So what is a pet blogging conference without at least one cat video? So here we see this kitten chasing her tail. She's going around and round in circles. So it's an illustration of, unless you have that, thank you, very good, yeah. Unless you have that plan, whatever you're doing in social media is like running around and around in circles and chasing your tail. You're never going to get anywhere, you're never going to catch that tail for the most part, and you're going to be totally frustrated. She's done. Thank you, Mr. Tech Guy. That's what he told me to call him. So we'll go back to, okay, there we are. So let's take a look at social media from a business perspective. This is a model, this is a sales model. Anybody that's been in traditional business understands this model. The eyeballs go in, that means that people, we create awareness. Usually it was through traditional media, ads, public relations, so forth. People looked at our products and they said, yes, we're going to buy it. No, we're not going to buy it. That's the consideration. The preference was, I have 5 different things to choose from. Perhaps I'll choose you. Then they bought it. There was loyalty and so forth and so on. Very direct, one straight line. This is what our buying cycle looks like today. It's a little bit crazy. So people can come in to our cycle at any point. Think of it now as you have Twitter, you have Facebook, you have a blog, you have a website. How are those people going to find you? And not only how are they going to find you, but how are they going to relate to you? How are they going to find the information that you want them to see? Most of the time, they will start by searching. And Twitter, as you all know, gets picked up by search engines. So if you optimize your tweets, you're going to have more of an opportunity for those people coming in. If somebody likes what you're tweeting out, they're going to share your tweet. So you're going to have more opportunities for people to find you to come into that really crazy pipeline. So it's not a straight shoot anymore. There's lots of different ways to get in, and that's because of the internet. And the more that we can take advantage of that, it doesn't mean you have to be in every single channel. It means you have to do every channel as well as you possibly can, given the resources that you might have. And that's time, a little bit of money, and a little bit of people or pet skills. So when we talk about planning, we usually talk about goals. And when people talk about goals, they often talk about return on investment. When you talk about return on investment, you're talking about dollars. So I've paid so many dollars to put up my Facebook page, to put up my Twitter page. I've hired somebody to do my avatar. What am I getting back in return? It's difficult, very difficult to make that distinction in social media unless you have a direct line to sales. So unless you are tweeting out a direct link, Dell has a direct link to their sales page. They can actually capture that number. ROO, return on objective, is a little bit easier to track, a little bit easier to get success from. And ROE, return on engagement. How you define those really goes back to, I'm going to again pick on Susan because she did such a beautiful job this morning, on who you are and what you want. So you need to define those. If, again, we're assuming that most people in this room are using their internet presence as some sort of a business or want to monetize. So that's the model here. Return on, here's some ideas for you. And by the way, this deck is going to be made available to you. I'll post it on SlideShare, and I'll post it on Diva Marketing. So don't worry about, take as many pictures as you want, but don't worry about it. So return on ideas, reinforcing branding. How many people here actually consider that they have a brand when they're taking a look at their, and what's your brand?
My brand?
Yeah. And when you say a cat blog, and how is your brand different than any other cat blog in the world?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
That's the heart of branding.
It's very good.
There you are. Who else has a brand? Yes.
I consider my name as my brand, and I would use that brand to use the blogs that I write. In this case, my cat blog, and I consider all the different things that I do in the cat blog unique to me in many ways. And some of the things that I do are see many other people doing, and at least not but
So the content that you're creating supports the goals of your, and so what makes your content different than any others on the internet?
Well, the types of things that I do, the types of things that I share in the sidebar and package in the blog, some of the content and the way I do it.
Uh-huh. And for some people, branding also means imagery. And so here we have, this is adorable, Tank's tail, and the logo, your logo, is a pickup on the tail with a little heart. I don't know if you can see that. But so your imagery of your branding relates directly to your name, which I think is brilliant. Good for you. So that's one way that you can create goals. Customer feedback and research. Perhaps on a Twitter account, you might ask a question, and I'll show you an example in a moment, and get some feedback. So maybe you're looking at adding a new product, and you ask a question, and you say, would you like this instead of that? Here's a link to a survey. So you can use Twitter as short bursts of information. We can also use Twitter as short bursts asking questions. You told me that being at BlogPaws was about sharing knowledge. Here's another word. How many people here work with more than one person in their blog, in their business? When your businesses grow, or if you're a brand, sometimes you work with multiple people within the organization. Sometimes those organizations, even if you're working with 3 or 4 or 5 people, are siloed of information. Twitter and social media in general gives you an opportunity to share internal knowledge, not only with people externally, but if you make sure that the people that you're working with have access to your Twitter account or to your Facebook account and know that you're updating it, then they're going to get information probably a little bit sooner than if a memo was sent out. Sometimes those memos get clogged up. So lots of ways for you to think about creating objectives, return on ideas. It doesn't necessarily have to relate back to dollars. It can relate back to your objectives, can relate back to engagement. So how you're engaging with people, who you're engaging with, and the type of engagement. This was taken from Ogilvy, which is a very spiffy advertising agency. And what Ogilvy did is they created strategies, this is specifically for Twitter, against outcomes. So a strategy for customer relationships, who to follow, the type of content to create, and then how to engage. So let's just follow the first one through. Follow your customers and potential customers. So a lot of times what we find in niche segments in the pet blogging world is very much a niche special segment. We follow each other and we learn from each other, but sometimes we need to go beyond that to our customers or to our prospective customers who may not be part of that world. So follow your customers, follow prospective customers, creating relevant content and tips. What do they want? We'll go into content in a little further in the presentation. And then engage. Asking them questions, adding them, making sure that if they talk to you, you talk back to them. That's the engagement part. Questions, comments? So, when we think of customers, we think of a group of people, but they're not all alike. So here I am looking at you, and here you are, a wonderful, talented group of people who love pets. Some of you may have dogs, some of you may have cats, some of you have a Westie dog like Max, some of you may have ferrets or chicks. So even though you're part of the pet blogging world, you're each different and separate in how you look at your pets, how you relate to your pets, the type of treats that you give your pets, when you give your pets those treats, all a little different based upon who you are and your pet. This is my friend's dog. She adopted this dog, and when she went in to get the dog neutered, they found out that the dog was pregnant with puppies. Surprise! So they said to her, well, we really would like you to keep the dog because you want the dog. Would you keep the dog and raise the puppies until we can give them away to good homes? And she did. So not all customers are alike, and there are surprises down the road that are unexpected. So what I want to do now is give you a little bit of a different way to look at customer segmentation. So if you do something for me, cross your arms. Does it feel comfortable? No? Cross your arms the other way. So if your right hand is on top, put your left hand on top and your right hand on the bottom. I know, I couldn't do it either. It took me some time to practice. It's a little bit uncomfortable. It doesn't feel natural. So think of that as we're going through part of this presentation. Some of what we might share with you might feel not exactly natural. Some of it may feel a little uncomfortable. Take what is best for you, but think about the rest. So here's one way to think about your customers. Has anybody heard the word persona? Have you drawn customer personas? Has anybody done that? Want to share with us?
Oh, it wasn't for the company I'm doing now, but it was, I found it to be a really good task because it wasn't real. It was a real person, but it wasn't real.
And how'd you find the information?
It was really helpful.
How did you find the information to create the personas?
Well, it was our demographic. So, so, you know, with women, I had two. So I'm working on two women at home. One is like a younger female, while the other one is middle aged. So, one by that,
Mm-hmm. Right. So oftentimes what we'll do is we will take a look at the customers that we have currently or the customers that we want to get, and we will take a look at their characteristics. So, I'm sorry, your name? Okay, say that louder. Thank you. So Amy's looking at women who are in a certain demographic. Probably they are your current customers. And she's also taking a look at other aspects. So on the internet, what we find, especially in social media, is that demographics matter to an extent, but it's not the whole picture. It doesn't really matter if I'm between the ages of 25 and 37. What matters is that I have a cat and I love my cat and I'm putting pink bows on her because she's so cute. The person next to me who's doing the same thing may be a gentleman who's in his 70s. We're in totally different demographics. He may live in a penthouse in Manhattan, and I may live in a small village in Georgia. So what really is important is not necessarily the age group for what we're doing, but what we have in common. So this right here, this example, is somebody's done this for meetings. So here we have the princess who wants to appear to know about everything. And then we have the hijacker who bullies people in meetings. So you can slice and dice personas in lots and lots of different ways. But starting with the characteristics of the customers that you have, and then adding to that, you can create these people. And as Amy said, what it does is it takes away the shadowiness of when you are writing, and it puts a almost sort of real person in front of you so that I know I'm writing about the princess, or I'm writing about somebody who really has an affinity towards long-haired cats that lives in the city and takes her cats for walks on leashes. So when I write for that person, when I create content for that person, all of a sudden now I have a better idea of who she might be, and so I can create content specifically instead of just for one dimension. Make sense? Another way to look at this is through the eyes or the lens of something called a tribe. This was created, the concept was created by Seth Godin a couple years ago. Have people done work with tribes before? On Triber? Mm-hmm. And what have you done?
We're part of the tribe.
And who are you again? Both of you, are you for the same company?
I'm with Sebastian and Sense of Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And Triber is a way for us to create a tribe and tweet out the other tribe members.
So let me spin this a little bit for you. Instead of looking at your own tribe, let's look at the tribes of your customers who may not be part of your tribe. They may not be part of the BlogPaws tribe. They may be part of my tribe. So on top you see these 5 gentlemen. According to Seth Godin, a tribe has certain characteristics, and one of those characteristics is that they usually have a leader, somebody who's pulling them together. On our golfing buddies, perhaps the man in the white shirt might have been the person who's the leader. Maybe he got them all together. Maybe he was the person that said, okay, every Sunday we are going to go golfing together. And even though it's an informal relationship, those people are involved with him, involved with each other because of him. So let's take a look at this photo. Where do you think the tribe might come from? They look different. They're not like those gentlemen up there that are playing golf. They're sort of similar, but where's the connection? What might the connection be? Say again? They're travelers. Yeah, could be. Yeah. Could be the music they're listening to. Excellent. Could be their destination. Yeah. Right. They're listening to a podcast. Maybe you're listening to your podcast. Maybe they're part of your tribe and you don't know it. So taking a look at your customer's tribe will give you an insight into how you can take a look at expanding your customer base. And then again, creating content that might be relevant to that tribe, whereas these two people might both love dogs, so might those gentlemen in the golf shirts. But perhaps you want to do something a little bit different for that tribe than for that tribe. A list of resources for you. So how do you find these people? There are lots and lots of free and sometimes low-cost means on the internet to find Twitter followers. This is one of my favorites we follow, and we're going to click into it in a second. So there's Twello, here we are. And if you just want to scroll down. So now if you want to click onto one of these, it will take you deeper into it. I don't know if our Mr. Tech Guy will want to do that, but if you, here we are. So here's Jimmy Fallon. Here are people that are writing about him that shows you their prominence. The prominence scores are based upon an algorithm developed by WeFollow. So these are the most prominent, the most influencers. So you want to identify influencers who are talking about you, talking about pets, talking about specifically what you do. A couple of ideas to do that. So the higher the score, the more influential they are. Perhaps part of what your content strategy is, our following strategy is to follow influencers who in turn might share your contact to their networks, their tribes. Thank you. So a couple of different ways, and again, all that will be made available to you. So segment 1, plan, define your audience segments, create personas, identify tribes, and remember, your customers together may be as different as Tara and Bella, but they have something in common. So what I'd like you to do is turn to your neighbor, and let's take 2 minutes. Talk to each other about who your ideal customer might be. What one characteristic can you add to your game plan, to your story, under Know Your Customers, to help you begin to build a tribe and personas? Sometimes I think it helps if we just exchange ideas.
I don't know. My customer is anyone who loves cameras.
That was great.
Oh, perfect. But when people talk, just for the video, if they're talking here, we're not going to hear it on the video. So any sort of questions and stuff, you can get them to go up there. That'd be awesome. So we want, people who watch this, you don't want to hear what they say. It's fascinating. So it's really interesting.
Totally forgot. All right, talk to me.
Well, my blog is very different from most of the blogs that are here because I just don't do ads.
So what characteristic of your customers or your prospect customers might you identify to help you build out that tribe or persona so that you can go after more of those same people?
Well, I guess I'm not quite following what it is you're trying to get. I mean, every customer has a characteristic. I don't know, my customers, I have 3 different groups of different customers. that come to my website. Initially, the people who came to my site were interested in crochet and knitting because that's what the blog started out to be. And then I have this new group who are interested in my cats. And then I have some people who are interested in the coffee shop reviews that I did around the city. So I have three completely different.
So what you'd want to do is you'd want to do each one of those separately. So it could be your coffee shop around the city. Might be people that are walking to work. That might be something. It could be people who like decaf coffee. It might be people who like decaf coffee. It might be people who take their animals on walks with them. So that would be a characteristic that you could begin to build a persona with. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So what? All right. I knew this would happen. It's like herding cats. So what I can't whistle. Can you whistle? All right. So anybody want to share back their information? Ah, thank you. So what did you find out? What did you learn from each other? Anybody? And we've been asked if you would go to the mic and share. You're not going?
Well, no, I've got to. I can't. I've got walking mood.
Oh, okay. Anybody? Develop something different, identify something that might help you create an additional customer segment? Yes, no, yes? All right, would you go over there? You can share together.
So my name's Andrew. I'm from Pets Plus Us Pet Insurance in Canada.
And I'm Michelle, and I'm from Crunchkins, an edible pet greeting card company.
So we kind of thought it was neat how our markets were actually catered towards the same. They're usually women who have disposable income that are between the ages of 28 and up 40. And they have to, well, why don't you talk about the next point?
Sure. So we think that they have disposable income and that the pets themselves are an extended part of their family. So these are people who really believe that their pet is just like their child.
And so with that said, we came up with the Pet Mom.
Perfect. Yay. Thank you. All right. So we have the Pet Mom. The next step is, how are we going to engage them? What kind of content are we going to write? This was a study done by the New York Times that identified elements of why people share. From my point of view, one of the most powerful aspects of social media, we talked about networking, we talked about learning, is in the sharing. If you can get somebody excited about your content and they think that your tweet is valuable enough to pass along to their network, it's going to extend your reach significantly. So these are some of the reasons why people share. They don't only just share because they think the information is fun or valuable. They share because they want to grow their relationships. They share because it gives them a sense of fulfillment to help other people. They share to get the word out about causes or brands. How many people here are doing any type of nonprofit or rescue work? So according to the New York Times, that is a huge reason why people share. So you are in the right place at the right time in social media to help your causes and to create extended awareness. Content is I like to think of it as queen, but content that we're pushing out in tweets, is not necessarily only about our brands. In order to get people to understand who we are and what we're doing, there has to be some intrinsic, what I call selfless value. And somebody said to me, but you're talking about presence. I said, yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it. If you think about giving a tweet away as a present to somebody, to your pet mom, she's very busy. She has disposable income, but she's very busy. Why would you want to read even a 10-second tweet? Because there's something in it for her. It's something that's going to make her life a little bit easier, a little bit more fun, something that she might want to pass along to her network. And then we service. It's a service type of content. So unlike traditional advertising, where it's all about me, we're really switching the game plan, and we're saying, I understand who you are, I understand what you want, now let me see if I can package it in 140 characters so that it will be something meaningful for your life. A present. And as you're doing that, somebody said to me just a little while ago, I just don't get Twitter. I just don't get it. So, well, do you get Facebook? And he said, yes, I understand Facebook. I can put out pictures. I can talk to my friends. They can comment back. I don't comment back on Twitter. Do you retweet? Every once in a while. Twitter now has a functionality where you can see how people are retweeting and you can actually see that conversation. So what you're doing first, last, and always is you're building community between your customers now. So you might be building community among your colleagues within the pet blogging world. But on a business basis, think of it this way. It used to be if I had an experience with your company, it was you and me together. Just you and me, babe, nobody else. But it's different now. My relationship with you on Twitter or on Facebook within the social web is my relationship with everybody. So my experience, even if I don't know you, you can see my experience with a particular company, so it extends. So inadvertently, you're always building that community. And if people like you, you're going to come back and pass along your information because, as we said before, you're giving them a present. Let me give you a couple of examples. These aren't necessarily taken from the pet community, and sometimes it's interesting to look at things outside of our own world. This is something that was done a couple of years ago by Ford. Ford decided what they would do is they would hold a tweet chat. So we called it a Twitter town hall meeting with their CEO, Alan Mulally. You can barely see, but on the upper left-hand corner, there's a man behind the computer, and he is writing out the answers on Twitter. That's Scott Monte. Scott Monte is the face of Ford. What they did is, here's the tweets. They dedicated 1 hour for people to talk to the president of Ford. How amazing is that unto itself? But then they were very smart. They videoed it. So they had a video and they had tweets. Then what they did is they took the video, put it on YouTube, took the video and the tweets, and put it on Scott's blog. So here we have 3 different social mediums, a blog, Twitter, and YouTube, all integrated into one campaign, one initiative. Brilliant. Another way of integrating. If any of you stopped in yesterday to hear Dorothea's Pinterest talk, you heard her talk about pin chat. Kelly Lieberman, her Twitter handle is Tribe 2.0. Horrible name. I don't know why she did that, but horrible name. At any rate, handle. Kelly has a tweet chat every Wednesday, 9 o'clock Eastern. And what she does is she takes it and she puts it on Storify. So she takes her tweets, puts it on Storify, and then she also puts it on her blog, and she puts it into her Pinterest page. So she's getting triple bang for the buck. So if you can't attend her tweet chat, which is excellent information, and she continually brings in guest speakers, you can pick it up on Storify, you can pick it up on her blog, and she refers you back to it on Pinterest. So when you're building your content, think of Twitter as one building block, and think of how you can extend that. One of the reasons you want to do that is because the tweets disappear. So you might have some great content, especially if you're doing something like a tweet chat, but it's really hard to find afterwards. So it gives you one way to hold that conversation for your own learnings and for your customers' learnings. Contests. Talked a little bit before about contests and about this is a crowdsourced, very interesting way that Zappos did this. So Zappos decided that what they wanted to do is they wanted to change up their confirmation. They thought it was dull and boring, and so what they did is they tweeted this out, and they said, Zappos orders a confirmation email, they're boring, for Twitters only, win free shoes by writing a better one for us. And they gave a link to where you could submit that. And then they tweeted it out. So what they did is they got their customers to actually help them create some sort of internal process. Think about that. Not only did they turn this into a contest with a great prize, with great expanded awareness of what they were doing, but their customers actually helped them put something together that they had to use anyway. So it's bringing your customers internally to help you. We talked a little bit about branding before. Internally to create processes for your brand. Another way to look at content and sharing is through influencers. Clout. How many people know about Clout? How many people don't know about Clout? Who knows about Clout? What's Clout? Oh, would you go over there? You have to use a microphone. Sorry about that. The tech guy was watching me.
So Clout is kind of like your Twitter, or what you were referring to earlier, how it measures a bunch of analytics to find what you're influential on and what topics your audience is really keen on. I guess is a loose way of describing it.
Thank you. So Clout's a pretty big company, even though it's a small company. It has a lot of clout. Think of it this way. Look at Clout's model. They've targeted people. We've talked about how to find those people, given you a couple of tools how to do that. They've found those people. They've engaged those people. They've gone out and they've spoke to them. And then they've given them something of what they've called amplify, something to tweet about, something to share. They've packaged that all in a program. We can do this on a smaller scale. We don't especially need to have the big clout that Clout has, nor might we get 51.14 million impressions, but it can make a difference. So let me show you how something very tiny can make a difference. This is an example from me. I was tweeting about a gentleman in Atlanta who had just written a book about email marketing. And I mentioned it in a tweet. A woman who is following me but not following Sim Jenkins, her name is Tish, picked it up. And in the course of our Twitter stream said to me, thank you for tweeting this, I'm going to buy his book. So within a probably 15-second tweet stream back and forth, Sim sold a book. Am I an influencer in the email marketing world? Probably not. Right time, right person, small steps to influencer programs. This image is from the Boston Garden in the Make Way for Ducklings book. Has anybody read that book? One of my favorites. So who you're following impacts your engagement. So take a look at following, obviously, your customers. You might follow thought leaders. Obviously, you probably will follow people within your industry. But the followers, your followers, will impact the content that you develop. One way to structure content is to write a content calendar. This is something that Goodwill has done, Goodwill of Washington, D.C. Every day they've identified a different topic area. They put it on their blog and then they tweet about that. So Monday is vintage. So all the way to Friday where they talk about fashionista. It's one way to structure what you're doing. It's one way to help create what I might call evergreen content. Sometimes you're so busy you can't write at that point in time. But if you have some sort of an outline, some sort of a calendar, it gives you a heads up. A couple of ways to find content. Your followers. Check out the links that they're doing. There's something called Paperly. Gives you an opportunity to curate content in what looks like a newsletter. You can choose your sources. Not only does Paperly go out to your entire universe, you can connect it with your Twitter, but also gives you information about whatever you're looking at, specific industries. Vine. Vine is Twitter's newest little app. It's a 66-second video. So here's a video that I took today of Lucy. So Lucy is now on my Twitter page, and people are enjoying Lucy. It loops around, fast way. So Vine, or again, Twitter is embedding and enabling photos as well as videos. Clout, we talked about influences. Clout's one way to identify some of the influences away, and photos. So when we talk about engagement, there's a whole big world out there of content. Some ideas for you to think about. Talked about defining segments of followers, interacting, active and reactive. So the active and the reactive might be you're putting out information. The reactive would be you are actually going into somebody else's stream and talking to them. So if I were to follow you and you were to talk about a particular topic, I might come back and join your conversation. That would be something that I would be reacting to what you had put out. Make sense? So we won't go through this because I think our time is getting a little bit short, but the next part of your story would be to identify the type of content. So it could be pictures, it could be a calendar, it could be identifying topics that you want. So knowing your customers, going back into content engagement. You don't know if you've succeeded until you've taken a look at metrics. Soul Pup is a friend of mine in Atlanta. Marika has this great blog and she has a Twitter account. Branding is terrific. It's fairly new, and she kindly shared with us her Google stats. So very low, not a whole lot of people. All of a sudden one day she saw a spike. And she started looking into why that spike. She had put something out on Twitter. Sorry, Laura. But VPI Pet Insurance saw it, and they retweeted it, and they put it on their Facebook page. So something that was so small to her created a huge spike. And then what we decided to do is, I said to her, why don't you go back and talk to them? Maybe there's a way that you can create an extended relationship. So she did. She called them. She actually did something very old-fashioned. She picked up the phone and she called them. She found the right person, and she thanked them. Right here, this is something that's a secret. And I will tell it to you. That's how people get more off, is to go back and thank. I don't know about you, but when we were little, my mother always made us write thank you notes. So if you take what your mom told you and just apply it in the social media world, huge results. So now she has a relationship with BPI Pets. They're going to be watching her more closely. They're going to be telling her what their content strategy is. She might dovetail back into that, and they might end up using some of her content. All because she watched the spike in her metrics and went back and proactively built that relationship. So BlogPaws, this is one of the latest clips. This is what Twitter gives you for the most part. Tweets, followers, following. Not a whole lot of deep metrics. There are, remember to keep goals in mind, there are third-party applications. Some of them are free and some of them are not. This is one of my very best favorites. I found it, very best favorites. Okay, Toby. Have some more coffee. It's called Tweetnonomy. And it's free. And it gives you some of the richest metrics that I've seen online. So up on the top, it gives you an overview of the tweets, the followers, and so forth. When you join Twitter again, this is BlogPaws. I just wanted to, didn't want to go too deep into another one. It gives you Twitter analytics, how many tweets per day you've done, the number of tweets, your followers, the users who mention you most. So we talked a lot about influencers, but what about the people that love you, that love your brand? Do you really know who they are, and are you engaging with those people? They may not have a huge influencer follower, but those are the people that are going to tweet you out. Those are the people that are going to retweet you. Those are the people that will come to protect you if somebody firestorms you. So be kind to those people. What hashtags are being used most? What tweets are being retweeted? Why is that important? Why do you want to know which tweets are being retweeted? Oh, you have to use a mic.
Content, because if you know it's something that resonates with your target consumer, then you want to focus on that more.
Exactly. Thank you. More metrics. So. And I don't know if BlogPaws realize this, but they have people literally in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that are tweeting about them. So again, some tools for you to take back. Most of these are free. Bitly, are you using Bitly? Great tool. I loved it so much I put it up twice. Measure. So again, go back to what your measurement of success is. How you can use your metrics to move Twitter forward. And then in the next part of your story, what you would do is you would identify a couple of those metrics that go back to your engagement and your content based upon what your customers want. So the storyline. So we're putting out great content. Some people have found us, some people love us, but they won't come unless you tell them. One of the ways to do that is hashtags, and I dare say that every person or most people in this room know what hashtags are. But yours, mine, and ours, by that I mean your hashtag that I might put onto my tweet, mine that you might put into yours, or ours that we might put together. So if you find a bigger hashtag world, perhaps like BlogPaws, if you're not tweeting, if you're on Twitter right now and you haven't tweeted with a BlogPaws hashtag, I'd suggest you do that for any number of reasons. First of all, to show your support to the wonderful people here, but second of all, it will get you into a world that is probably bigger than your own. And you never know who is watching that stream that might decide your content is the right present for them. The right person might be your next customer. Just a little bit on Twitter's new headers. So on the top you see Purina. Right smack in the middle is a logo. It's sort of disjointed to me. You know, if they wanted to do it, should have moved the person and the pup a little bit further apart. Natural balance. we have the two principles there, but if I don't know anything about natural balance and I just see this header, unless I look really close and see that that might be Dick Van Pattern and maybe I'm a Gen Y-er and don't know who he is, does that really make any sense? It's great for Mr. Van Patten's ego, but is it really important? Does it drive the brand forward? Does it really tell me what this is about? I don't know, I question that. Here's Ford. I can tell this is a car right away. But let me show you something else that's even more important. What Ford has done is they have multiple people tweeting from the same account. See the little carrot right here? When different people tweet, they put their initials after the tweet. So what they've done here is they've done sort of a tweet chat with CFO Bob Shanks, and we know that when we see a carrot RS, it's Bob's tweets. So if you have multiple Twitter accounts, or if you are doing it from your brand, if people don't know your name, I would highly recommend keep your branding, but in the bio, let me know who you are. This is pretty fun. World Series boxing, not necessarily what I really liked about this, was the fact that it looks like a whole consistent page. Sometimes these pages are a little disjointed, but here you see this is just a continuation of a boxing ring. I thought it was brilliant. This is a book that I wrote, all on Twitter accounts, interviews. Actually, Susan and Yvonne were in this book. But what's important is not necessarily the book, but this. This is an ebook. It's a free ebook. But right here, tweet this. When people click on it, this opens up and it goes back into Twitter. And it's a way for them to help promote the book. So if you are doing an e-paper, a book, anything that you're doing that's a PDF form, you can put that in and people will help move that product forward for you. We talked a little bit about Twitter ads in the keynote today. This is a Twitter ad that came into my stream, which is a little confusing to me. I have nothing to do about healthcare, nurses. So here it is. GE is talking about nurses. In order for Twitter ads to make an impact, they have to be what's called natural or contextual, which means they have to be relevant to the people that are reading them. This has no relevancy. I don't know why I'm there. They didn't use, excellent question, they didn't use the back end of Twitter's hyper. So here you see, this is very, very, very similar to Facebook. Twitter takes all of their demographics and they can match the feed. So right here, you could match the feed into people that love all pets or people that just love dogs or horses. And apparently GE just thought it should go into the general Twitter stream. But if they had been a little bit more judicious, they could have got their target audience. Multiple locations, probably. I would assume most of you are doing this, pulling in your own tweet feed on your blog or your website. Want to, again, this is from Soul Puppy, want to show you that if you have your Twitter link on top of your page, above the fold, also put it on the bottom. Again, some of your pages may not pull up that link throughout, so usually the bottom footer will always remain. We talked about Vine. 10 quick tips for you. How many people here are on LinkedIn? Something very fast, low-hanging fruit. Go into your contact information and put in your Twitter account if you don't have it already. How many people here have a Facebook page? Go back into your Facebook information page and see if you've put your Twitter account on that page. I dare say that probably at least 60% have not. Real easy to do, low-hanging fruit. Business cards. This is from our friends back at Zappo. And Twitter really moved their business forward. So this is the back of their card, powered by Twitter, and it totally was. They will not come unless you tell them. So Field of Dreams. So here we go. So my time is just about up. I think there are people trying to get into the room. So I want to leave you with this quote from Twitter. At the end of the day, as we started to talk about from the beginning of the day, it's all about how you build those relationships, how you help people understand who you are and what you're doing by giving them back information that is relevant to them, that aligns with your brand and your brand values. So with that, Max and I say thank you, and happy to answer any questions.